2020 Military Strength Ranking. 10. The Brazilian Armed Forces, Portuguese, Forças Armadas Brasileiras. Brazil's armed forces are the second largest in the Americas, after the United States, and the largest in Latin America by the level of military equipment, with 334,500 active duty troops and officers. The armed forces are expanding their presence in the Amazon under the Northern Corridor program. In 1994, Brazilian troops joined United Nations (UN) peacekeeping forces in 5 countries. Brazilian soldiers were in Haiti from 2004 until 2017, leading the United Nations Stabilization Mission (MINUSTAD). The Brazilian military, especially the army, has become more involved in civic action programs, education, healthcare, and constructing roads, bridges, and railroads across the nation. Although the 1988 Constitution preserves the external and internal roles of the armed forces, it places the military under presidential authority. 9. The Egyptian Armed Forces are the state military organization responsible for the defense of Egypt. They consist of the Egyptian Army, Egyptian Navy, Egyptian Air Force and Egyptian Air Defense Forces. The President of the Republic serves as Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces. The Minister of Defense and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, the senior uniformed officer, is Colonel General Mohammed Zaki since June 2018, and the Chief of Staff is Lieutenant General Mohammed Farid Hegazi since October 2017. The armament of the Egyptian Armed Forces varies between Eastern and Western sources through weapons deliveries by several countries, led by the United States, Russia, France, China, Italy, Ukraine and Britain. Many of the equipment is manufactured locally in Egyptian factories. The Egyptian Armed Forces celebrate their anniversary on October 6 each year to commemorate the crossing of the Suez during the October War of 1973. The modern Egyptian Armed Forces have been involved in numerous crises and wars since independence, from the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, Egyptian Revolution of 1952, Suez Crisis, North Yemen Civil War, Six-Day War, Nigerian Civil War, War of Attrition, Yom Kippur War, Egyptian bread riots, 1986 Egyptian conscripts riot, Libyan Egyptian War, Gulf War, War on Terror, Egyptian Crisis, Second Libyan Civil War, War on ISIL and the Sinai Insurgency. 8. The British Armed Forces, also known as Her Majesty's Armed Forces, are the military services responsible for the defence of the United Kingdom, its overseas territories and the Crown dependencies. They also promote the UK's wider interests, support international peacekeeping efforts and provide humanitarian aid. The United Kingdom is one of 5 recognized nuclear powers, is a permanent member on the United Nations Security Council, is a founding and leading member of the NATO military alliance, and is party to the 5-power defense arrangements. Overseas garrisons and training facilities are maintained at Ascension Island, Bahrain, Belize, Bermuda, British Indian Ocean Territory, Brunei, Canada, Cyprus, the Falkland Islands, Germany, Gibraltar, Kenya, Montserrat, Nepal, Qatar, Singapore and the United States. 7. The military history of France encompasses an immense panorama of conflicts and struggles extending for more than 2,000 years across areas including modern France, Greater Europe, and French territorial possessions overseas. According to British historian Niall Ferguson, the French participated in 50 of the 125 major European wars that had been fought since 1495, more than any other European state. They are followed by the Austrians, who fought in 47 of them, the Spanish in 34 and the English and later British, who were involved in 33. In addition, out of all recorded conflicts which occurred since the year 387 BC, France has fought in 168 of them, won 109, lost 49 and drawn 10, thus making France the most successful military power in European history. 6. The Korean People's Army. Korean People's Military is the military forces of North Korea and the armed wing of the Workers' Party of Korea. Under the Songun policy, it is the central institution of North Korean society. Kim Jong-un serves as Supreme Commander and the Chairman of the Central Military Commission. The PA consists of 5 branches: the Ground Force, the Naval Force, the Air and Anti-Air Force, the Strategic Rocket Forces, and the Special Operation Force. The PA considers its primary adversaries to be the Republic of Korea Armed Forces and United States Forces Korea, across the Korean Demilitarized Zone, as it has since the Armistice Agreement of July 1953. As of 2016, with 5,889,000 paramilitary personnel, it is the largest paramilitary organization in the world. This numbers 25% of the North Korean population. 5. In late June and early July 2014, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and his cabinet agreed to lift the long-term ban on engaging Japanese troops abroad, a prohibition dating to the end of the Second World War, in a bid to strengthen Japan's position against growing Chinese military aggression and North Korean nuclear weapons testing. Though these actions were considered to be in accordance with Article 9 of the Japanese Constitution forbidding the use of war as a means of settling disputes, the government signaled that it may seek to, in the future, reinterpret the prohibition. 4. The Indian Armed Forces are the military forces of the Republic of India. It consists of 3 professional uniformed services: the Indian Army, Indian Navy, and Indian Air Force. Additionally, the Indian Armed Forces are supported by the Indian Coast Guard and paramilitary organizations, Assam Rifles, and Special Frontier Force, and various inter-service commands and institutions such as the Strategic Forces Command, the Andaman and Nicobar Command, and the Integrated Defense Staff. The President of India is the Supreme Commander of the Indian Armed Forces. The Indian Armed Forces are under the management of the Ministry of Defense (MOD) of the Government of India. With strength of over 1.4 million active personnel, it is the world's 4th largest military force and has the world's largest volunteer army. 3. The People's Liberation Army (PLA) is the regular armed forces of the People's Republic of China (PRC) and of the PRC's founding and ruling political party, the Communist Party of China (CPC). Besides the Central Military Commission and several minor units directly under it, the PLA has 5 major service branches: the Ground Force, Navy, Air Force, Rocket Force, and the Strategic Support Force. A majority of military units around the country are assigned to one of 5 theater commands by geographical location. The PLA is the world's largest military force and constitutes the 2nd largest defense budget in the world. The PLA is one of the fastest modernizing militaries in the world and has been termed as a potential military superpower. With significant regional power and rising global power projection capabilities. Per Credit Suisse in 2015, the PLA is the world's 3rd most powerful military. 2. The armed forces of the Russian Federation, commonly known as the Russian Armed Forces, are the military forces of the Russian Federation, established after the dissolution of the Soviet Union. It is the most powerful military in Europe, and is one of the world's largest military forces. According to Credit Suisse, Russia has the world's 2nd most powerful military. The Russian armed forces also possess the largest stockpile of nuclear warheads in the world. Under Russian federal law, the armed forces, along with the Federal Security Service (FSB)'s border troops, the National Guard, the Ministry of Internal Affairs (MVD), the Federal Protective Service (FSO), the Foreign Intelligence Service (SVR), and Emerkom's civil defense form Russia's military services and are under direct control of the Security Council of Russia. 1. The United States Armed Forces are the military forces of the United States of America. It consists of the Army, the Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, Space Force, and Coast Guard. The U.S. Armed Forces are considered the world's most powerful military. The military budget of the United States was $693 billion in 2019, the highest in the world. In 2018, that accounted for 36% of the world's defense expenditures. The U.S. Armed Forces has significant capabilities in both defense and power projection due to its large budget, resulting in advanced and powerful technologies which enables a widespread deployment of the force around the world, including around 800 military bases outside the United States.